excited to come to you today with this live with Janome so that we can show you the basics of template quilting, but also show you the features of this beautiful M7 machine. We want to get started with showing you how we are going to be setting the machine up, and then we're going to do a project. So we have a lot of fun planned for the day. We also have giveaways. So you'll want to comment and share, give us a thumbs up, because this is an interactive party. I have someone here with me, my daughter Megan. She is going to be doing the camera, and she's pretty talented because she's an elementary school teacher. So she's also going to be letting me know about the comments. So comments lead to prizes. So we will be giving away 7 different door prizes. There's no door, but you know what I mean. So we'll be giving away 7 different prizes, and we will have actually a full week to enter this. So you're going to be able to watch this afterwards again. So if you want to just watch today and then watch it again and do your project that time, you can do that. You can also share this with your friends, and you can have them like and share, and everybody will be in the prize drawing. So again, that will be next week. Stacy at So Steady will be taking care of that part of it. I know what the door prizes are, so we're going to be able to tell you that. And as we go, the more comments, the more likes, the more shares. That's what makes this fun. So don't hesitate to ask questions. That's what we're here for. We want to make this as if you were right here in my quilting studio with me. So without further ado, let's get started. We're going to move the camera around so you can actually see everything just as if you were sitting in my seat at my beautiful M7. So the first thing we're going to show you is the templates. And the templates that come in the Janome set are these 6 templates. Now for today, we're only going to be using 3 of them. And before we start talking about that, let me make mention of the fact, if you didn't download the handout, there is an 8-page handout of instructions, and you may want to scroll down there just a little further on this page and download that handout, because there are some things that you're probably going to want to take some notes on. There are some blanks in there that I'm going to have you fill in as we go, because in some of it, it's kind of a little experimentation, and so when I decide exactly which position on my needle position I'm using, you'll be able to write that in. So that handout is on this very same page, and whether you know it or not, I know if some of you are like me, I'm a little bit challenged sometimes on doing 2 things at once, but you should be able to click on that and send that right to your printer at the same time. So these are the Janome set of templates, and all of these templates can be purchased from your local Janome dealer, and we certainly encourage you to support them. I know some stores are starting to open up, but a lot are still closed, and even though they may not be at their storefront, I'm sure if you contact them, they'll get you this set of templates. And the set of templates comes with not only these 6 templates, but it also comes with an 8.5-inch crosshair grid. And this is what a crosshair grid looks like. It's just going to be, I'll show it here in a minute. Let me put it over here because I have to have some black behind it. But you can now see that crosshair grid and what that looks like. And that's what we'll be using to get our exact markings. So template-wise, today we're going to be using the 3 by 8-inch straight edge that has etchings on it for lining things up. We're going to be using the simple pointed oval. I like the name of this because it describes it perfectly. It's an oval and it's got pointed ends. And then we're also going to be using what's called the 6-inch arc. Those are the 3 templates plus this crosshair grid that we will be using. Also comes in that set is the Spinifex 11, and then the Hearts of Plenty, and we also have a double oval clamshell here. So those are the ones we will not be using, so I'm going to lay those aside, and we will begin with these. Now, I'm going to also lay this aside for a second because I want to show you the sampler set, the Westerly sampler set. So The sampler set comes, well, this comes with the foot, and you'll notice mine has eyes because I got tired of looking for him, so I decided he could look for me. So that's the one that comes with the foot. We have the 4-inch arc, and we're going to be using that today. So those of you that have the sampler set will be able to do this project also. And then we're also going to be using the simple circle 2-inch. So those 3 templates will be what we will be using. Actually, this one will be using as the straight edge from the other set. This would be like the arc, and this would be like that oval. But also in the sampler set comes the spiral template. Now you see I've got a lot of markings and things on mine. Those are just ways that I mark it so that I know where I want to use it and line it up. This is also in that set. That's the Spinifex 4. We also have the Spinning Wheels 36. And last but not least, certainly not least, I use this a lot. This is the clamshell, or you can use it on 2 different sides here. Some people like to use it as borders. You can use it as fills. You can use it as a lot of different things. So we have this is scallops or clamshells.
We had a question from Barb when you were talking about the first set from Janome. Can those work on baby lock machines as well?
The Janome set is a high shank set. So if you have a high shank baby lock, then yes, you can use that. And this is just a set, I shouldn't say just a set, this is the set that was put together for Janome specifically, but it certainly doesn't mean you have to have that same machine to be able to do it. So it's a high shank set of templates, and it will work on any of the high shank machines. So some of you are wondering what the pink tape is. The pink tape I use to hold my gate in, and the reason I use that is because it's easy to undo, and the purpose of this is so I can now pull this out from around my foot or put it back in around my foot. And so then I can just put that back in place and do my design. You don't want to lose the gate because your design is then not able to be completed because there would be a gap there. And trust me, I've tried without it and it just doesn't work. So what I use is the RNK Perfection tape. It's an embroidery project tape, and it was designed specifically for like in the hoop projects where you would tape down zippers or trims or anything like that. But it works perfect for this because it lasts a long time and it holds there without being a gummy sticky feel. I've tried painter's tape, that doesn't last. Washi tape, Scotch tape is what they come with, but you're going to replace that real quick. That tape is going to go on the top of the template. You can read the word Janome here. It goes on the top because on the back we put what is called stable tape. And I want to bring this up real close so you can see it. It's kind of like the stuff that we use for drawer liner, only it has a double face on the back. It's a 1/2 inch wide, and you're going to be putting it on there in 1/2 inch pieces. And you want to put it around the outer edges where you're going to be putting your pressure. You'll notice that my 8-inch piece, I just have 4 pieces around it. It's interesting because I will go in to teach a class, and stable tape comes in an 8-inch long piece. And you know, I know I have one here close, but I can't put my fingers on it right now. But they would actually have taken that, oh, my faithful assistant, AKA my daughter, got it for me. So this would be the starter ruler, and instead of putting it around here, they would have taken this whole piece and just laid it right down the center, which creates a teeter-totter, because if you don't have these pieces there, this is higher in the center and it just rocks back and forth. So we don't want to use that stable tape that way. So you know what? I think it's time to give away some stable tape. So we're going to be giving away stable tape. So anybody who has commented, shared, or whatever up to now will be one of those that's in the drawing for the stable tape. So
there was a question, what about grip dots instead of the stable tape?
It just depends. I know that there are some out there that are like sandpaper. Some are called glitter grippers. I think So Steady even has some of those by Sarah Diddy. I personally like to have this, and I'll tell you why. because I guess since I'm one that's teaching the class, I'll tell you why I do what I do, right? So this little stuff here, this stable tape, has these little bumps. And those little pillowy pads, as I say, when I put that down onto my fabric sandwich, because that's what this is, it's a fabric sandwich here, and I put pressure on that template, those little pillowy pads do not stay on top of the surface like the glitter dots or like the skateboard tape or like sandpaper dots or whatever. They actually kind of mesh right down in your fabric, holding all those layers together so I can easily move this. For me, my most success has been with stable tape. I've even tried the other things where you can actually spray on what's called grippy. That was a disaster for me. And the main reason for it is, it made this so cloudy, I could not see any of my lines. So I like to do what the experts like to do, and when Leonie West brought these to market, she used stable tape, and it's working for me. And when I teach classes, most everybody who has tried some of those other things will go back and get stable tape.
And where can they find that? We've had that question from Rose.
Again, I want you to support your local Janome dealer, your local quilt store. If your Janome dealer is strictly machines, support your local quilt store. If not, obviously, Sew Steady can help you with locating that person, because they can find a retailer. And I would encourage you, if your local Janome dealer does not carry our products, the Westerly products, talk to them and convince them that maybe it's something they want to try. Show them this live that we're doing today, because this is hot. People are loving it. I don't know how many people are on here with us today, but I know that everybody has been excited about having all of the classes, because whether you know it or not, you can go on to Sew Steady, and we've been doing a live every single day for like the last 2.5 months, and that's going to continue.
All right. They noticed that you had those cool arrows. Want to know what they are and where to find them.
Okay, so like on this little template here, this is a line that I use, and those are what are called G-Easy ruler stickers. They come in 3 different colors. You can see if I kind of pull this down, well, you can see the blue and the orange, or the bright pink there, and then this would be the green. I love them because when I'm working on something, I want to see a line. I want to be able to place that where I need to place it. And I usually, just like right now, have one over here on the side of my table ready to go so that I can lay it on there. These are repositionable, so this was probably taken off of someplace, and then I just put it right back down onto my table so I can use it again. Do we have any other questions?
Yes, so we've got the Janome set. What was the second set of rulers you mentioned?
The second set is our sampler set, and this is the Get Started set. And realistically, it's the one that most everyone starts with. And I will show you the book that you can get, and this would help you with anything, but this is Janet Collins, From the First Stitch to the Last. And you can see the quilt on there has a bunch. Actually, there's 45 different designs, and all of those designs are explained in detail in the book as to how to do them with those 7 templates. Now, you don't have to do this quilt, but I'm sure you're going to want to know how to do that particular design. So that's the beauty of this book. And so this is a Janet Collins, From the First Stitch to the Last. Can you see my book? That's how much it's used. And I show this at every show, and people look at it and see why they would want to get the sampler set of templates and get started.
Patty would like to know if you could use these for long arm quilting.
Yes, great question, Patty. We have 3 heights of feet, or templates, excuse me. We have low shank templates, we have high shank templates, and we have long arm templates. And we have a foot to fit over 7,000 machines. I'm going to be using the foot that comes with this beautiful M7 today, because it comes with a ruler work foot, because it has a ruler work setting. Some machines do have their own feet, so you would want to check out yours.
Have you ever needed to replace the stable tape, and if so, does it leave a sticky residue?
The stable tape, yes. And one of the future lives that I'm going to be doing is basically going to be how to care for your templates and how to clean them, because after a while, yes, they do need to be replaced. So that's not an uncommon thing. All right, I'm going to move on unless there's some more questions, and I'm going to show you my big, nice, beautiful, actually it's a Mother's Day special right now, and that's this Sew Steady Wish Table. The Sew Steady Wish Table is because we need to have a nice flat surface. Now this M7 comes with a nice flat surface. It has a big extension table that is flat and has a drawer in the front, and that's really nice. I like to have it a little bit bigger, and I like to have the convenience of all my tools here on in my nice drawer. And so this can pull to the side and pull completely out, but you'll notice I've even got my different plates for my machine. I'll have to close it so you can see it. I've got my different plates. I've also got my AccuFeed foot, and I've got some different accessory feet over here. So it's nice to have all of that handy. I also have on here what's called a grid glider. And the grid glider is so that my seams, even though that table, as I said, it's the Mother's Day special, that table, you can see this is a cling. I'm pulling it out. The table is custom cut for your machine. But I don't want to have to deal with these little crevices here or these spots. So I'm going to be using a grid glider, which is a surface that's going to allow my fabric to just glide. And I leave mine on all the time, so when you see me sewing regular today, I will have my grid glider on there. And so what I'm doing right now is taking time to line this line up straight out of the needle center here and vertically right out of that, so the needle is centered right there. So if I wanted to use the 1/4 inch, I could use it. I can use any of these measurements. And I will tell you, even seamstresses that have nothing to do with quilting are loving this grid glider for all of their sewing. You can see how easy it is. In the process of making today's project, we're going to be measuring, and I'll be able to measure right here with that. So that is my grid glider. I will quickly tell you, actually, I think now we'll give away a grid glider. So everybody that's signed up, you are going to get the opportunity to be in our drawing for the grid glider. And we polish our tables and we polish our mats. The tables right out of the box need to be polished. And the way you'll know that when you get yours is you will rub it on the bottom and you'll rub it on the top, and they feel pretty much the same. But after you've polished the top, you're going to see a big difference from what the bottom feels like, because it will be so much smoother. So this is what is called table and insert polish. You may have a cabinet that you would have an insert for that you can polish also. I even polish my table that comes with the Janome M7 because that helps it to glide too. So that is what we do with the table polish. And I mentioned the Mother's Day special. This table is normally $199. For Mother's Day, that's the price, but you also get the $25 grid glider free. So you can use that special. You can see it on the Sew Steady site. I think they're probably adding the link as to where you can see those special prices. And you can also take advantage of the free grid glider on the large table. So if you don't want this nice big 22.5 by 25.5 table, you can get one that's called the large table. All right, I want to go ahead and get going on this quilting and teaching you about this machine and why I love it for my free motion. So one of the things that I want to tell you is the home ec teacher in me is probably going to come out real quick because you're going to see that several times when I start talking about things. But one of the things I love about this machine, you'll notice at this point I don't have a foot on it, okay? I don't have a foot on it at this point. But I'm going to go over here to the screen, and I actually put this in your instructions, I believe. And over here on the side of the screen is a key. And when I touch that key, you can see that key, we're going to come back here to the foot, and you're going to watch the foot, and you're going to just trust me that I'm touching the key. So I'm touching it now, and it put my needle and my foot, which is not on there, everything in the right position so that when I go to thread my machine, it's going to be everything correctly in the right position, and it's going to thread, and you're not going to damage your needle threader. Now, the thing that I learned this week while I was playing that I love the most about it is, because I always taught my students, I still teach adults, never thread your machine with the foot down. You always want to thread it with it up so that the thread gets seated in the tension disc. But when this puts this down for this purpose, it doesn't close those tension discs, so I can still pull my thread out to have enough to thread it and to get ready for my project, which is a great, great feature. Now, when I unlock this and I put my foot down, now I cannot pull that thread like I did because it has engaged those tension discs. So that's a really nice feature, especially when we're doing template quilting, because we're just sewing and sewing and sewing and sewing and sewing, and many times we don't even have to lift the foot up because that foot is not, it's high enough that we can move our fabric underneath. So we sometimes forget. So that is a great feature. I absolutely love that. So one more quick thing that I'm going to show you on the screen that a couple weeks ago when I was with you giving you an introduction, we couldn't get to work, and it was because my phone was the one that was taping. You can see this QR code right here. If you snap a photo of that using the AccuSpark app, then you're going to be able to find out all the information. It's like a built-in manual, and we were using my daughter's phone, and she didn't have the app, and so we tried like 4 times, and I was feeling pretty silly until about a half an hour after the show when I realized, well, duh, my phone has that app, but hers didn't. So that's an app that when you snap a photo, because every time I change this page, a different QR code comes up in that corner. So it makes it very easy to follow what you're doing. So the first thing that we're going to be doing is I'm going to show you, you can go to my website, which has links on there, and you can order one of these kits. And this is the kit that's what we're using today. Now, I also gave you all the information that you could put together a kit on your own. And so in that kit, you would have a fat quarter practice sheet. So this would be what you could practice with. You would also have a zipper that's at least 12 inches long and a zipper pull tab that you're going to be able to use. You would have this piece, which is actually 2.5 by 10, I believe. We don't need it that big. And then you're going to have 2 pieces of fabric that are 10 by 25. And you're going to have a piece of fusible fleece here inside. So while I'm doing one step, I'm going to turn around. We don't need to turn the camera, but I'm going to turn around and get my press heated up so that I can show you how it works. So I'm going to be using the Elna press, which is a sister of Janome, and the Elna press is the 450. And that is also at a special price today. It's regular $10.99, and today it's going to be $300 off at $7.99. Now I'm going to come over here and I'm moving away from the camera for just a second, and I have my little ironing station with my wool mat, and all I'm doing right now is pressing this piece in half. Because the first thing that we're going to do is a decorative stitch. Now, another beauty that comes with your Janome is this nice big box of accessory feet. And so I have pulled out what I'm going to be using today. I'm going to be using the foot that is for ruler work. This is my ruler work foot. I'm going to be using the M foot, You can see it has little pins here, plus this edge on the side that is going to allow us to do an overcast stitch, very similar to what a serger would do. And then I'm also using this clear foot, and this is the F foot. Now the reason I'm using the clear foot is because we're going to be able to see and line up. We've got this nice little mark right here. This fits over all of the feed teeth, so it keeps everything nice and flat. And I want you to know, when I'm using ruler work settings, I like to use the purple needle, and then we sometimes call it the purple tip, and that means the shank up here is purple. And so I'm going to be using that. Now you can see all of the other feet and things that I have in here, a lot of stuff, and then I also have this nice big container for bobbins. I have a buttonhole attachment down here. I have my AccuFeed. I've got all kinds of other things down in that nice container. So I've got that, and I keep that. It's beautiful because it fits right underneath my Sew Steady table in the back. So it's perfect, and I can keep it out of the way. So the first thing we're going to be doing, and I probably should look at the directions to tell you exactly where we're at on that, is we're going to skip back to page 7. I take that back, it's page 6. And at the top, it says we're going to edge stitch all sides of the front and back pieces, and then but we're not there yet. What we're going to do is, before we get everything all set up, is we're going to do that second step there where it says fold the accent strip. Now these feet actually just snap on and snap off, and I want to show you. I just put my foot down. I can raise my foot back here, but I usually use the buttons on the front. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be using that up and down button there. I have already threaded my bobbin, and the stitch that I'm using is the stitch that you see right here in step 2. Oh, that's for the different, I want to do the decorative. Never mind me. Let's step down to number 5. This is the I'm missing a page, I think. Well, we're just going to wing it. I know it's on there, but I'm not seeing it right now. We're selecting in our decorative stitches, and I would like to bring the camera over here. I just like to do unit sewing so we get some things out of the way and we're ready to go. So we're going to bring the camera over to the screen, and I'm going to show you that right here we have these 2 little scrolls, and I press that, and this is going to bring up decorative stitches. So I'm going to go in here, and let's see if I pull this one up, if that's where it's at. Yes. And so in the heirloom panel, on the second page, there's stitch number 15. And so number 15 is the one that we're going to use. So when I select that, you can see it over here on the side, and it's the one that tells me to use the F foot. Now while I'm here, I'm just going to show you, if you want to see all your stitches at once, you can press this screen and you can see all of those stitches at once. So we're going to go back, and we are going to leave it set just like it is, although I could mirror image it side to side. And I'm going to be guiding my little strip that is now 1/4, 1 1/4 inches. And I'm just going to stitch this. And the thing that's cool about this is it knows what stitch speed it's happiest at doing this design. And so even though I might want to speed this up, I've got that as full as it will go, and it's not going to go any faster than that.
We've had a few questions about the purple needle, about the size of it and what's special about it. Can you tell us again what?
Well, I normally recommend that you use a 90 top stitch needle, and the purple needle is pretty much the answer to all things, because I've had people with even other brands of machines that were having issues, and we put the purple needle in and all of those issues went away. And I'm sure that one of the educators that's out there for Janome can explain what's different about that needle, but I just know that I hardly ever have anyone in class who has issues when we use that purple tip needle. Now that's going to work for your 40 and 50 weight fabrics. You're going to have to probably get a little bit different size needle, not fabrics, threads. You're going to get a different size needle when you have a heavier thread or maybe even a lighter weight thread. So you can see our little design there and how nice and flat it lays. I didn't have any stabilizer or anything. Most of the time when you do a decorative stitch, you feel like you got to go back and press it before you can even do anything. But this is laying nice and flat. So now what I want to show you is how we're going to use the press. So what I want to do is turn the camera around. I'm going to get my chair out of the way. Oh, it's good and hot. I was worried. So this is the Elna press, the 450. And when I put this down here, it won't stay. It'll go back up until I pull down on this lever. Now, I don't have anything in there, and I want to make sure that I don't get so happy about showing you all the fun features that I forget that it's hot. But the thing that's nice about the Elna press is it comes with your sleeve press already attached. So all I have to do is flip that back. I can put my sleeves on here, come down, and I can press those very easily. So you don't have to get out anything else, and it's just going to come back and lay right flat like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm first of all going to press my 25-inch by 10-inch piece of fabric. And I'm just going to bring this down, pull that down, wait about 3 seconds, and it's nice and flat. It's also nice and toasty warm. I'm going to bring it down to the other end and pull that down. Wait about 3 seconds. And then the backing for this one, this was the one that was called Champagne, I believe, because I just loved these colors. And so I'm going to go ahead and I want to make sure that this is good and flat. This happens to be my back piece, and this is the one that is going to get the fusible on it. Now you might think I picked my project just because it was the distance across here. I didn't. If you want to, you can press this way. But even though this is a busy fabric, you can see that it's nice and flat. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take my fusible fleece. Now this is the one that has fusible on one side. This is the Pellon 987F. And I'm going to lay it down right on top of that. Now I don't want to have any of that fleece on my mat here. So I want to make sure that my fabric is right at that edge. And I'm going to pull this down just a little bit more. I'm going to spritz a little bit of water on there. I'm going to bring this down.
Now why did you spritz the water?
Because this fleece, the glue in the fleece is activated with steam. And so since this is not a steam press, we need to add our own steam, which I'm finding I really like that a lot because then I can control that. So I'm going to come down here. And you'll notice I've got it in one of these mister bottles. This is my water. And that's going to allow me to get a good coverage with my steam. So now you can see that is all adhered, and that was just that easy. It's not a matter of having to go back and do it again. If you wanted to do it this way, you could actually do the same thing here. You'll notice while I've got this down, I've got different, I started to say speeds, but different temperatures. While I start talking, I might forget what I'm doing. And so you would just roll this back, keeping your hand away from that. And you could have that so that it goes that way. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come over here to the cutting area. We'll get our practice piece out of the way. And what I want to do is, I just love how nice and flat that is. It just makes it so much nicer. It doesn't stretch it. I love the press. If you ever do any like t-shirt quilts or anything like that where you have to press the interfacing to the back, it just makes it so easy. So now that is on there, and I would normally have a cloth on this, but I'm going to use a little bit of the one I like is the quilt basting spray. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go close enough to it to just put a little bit of that on here since this is single-sided. And I don't want any overspray, that's why I'm going real close.
Carol had a question about the press. Is it hard to clean if you do accidentally get some of that adhesive on it?
No, and I'll tell you the secret. What I do is I take paper towels, because guess what, it has happened. I take paper towels and I put 2 layers over my lower board, and then I set new bounce dryer sheets on top of the paper towels. And then all you have to do is set it down on there, and it's amazing how clean, and that's the way I clean the bottom of my irons too. So it just makes it so much easier. All right, if you look at your instructions here, on the front I've got your preparations. And so what we're going to do now with this piece is, it was 10 by 25. I am going to cut it into 2 pieces, one 10 by 11 and one 10 by 14. So I'm going to turn my fabric here, line that up, and I'm going to come over here 10 inches. Actually, it's 11. So measure twice, cut once. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now I can count. So this is going to be my front piece, and this is going to be my back piece. So we are going to do the fronts and the backs. Now I'm going to tell you that when I do this today, I am going to stitch from this side because I want you to be able to see my stitching. But in the bag that I actually made, this being the bag, this is going to be the front, and then you can see what I did on the back. Now on this one, I did straight lines on it rather than the hatching that I'm going to show you, because first of all, I felt like that looked better with that particular fabric. So on this bag, that was one that was pictured earlier, we did the cross hatching.
What was the name of the interfacing again?
Pellon 987F. So the first thing we're going to do is the cross hatching. I've got to get my chair back down here. Now, I talked a little bit before about how we did the setup and everything on the machine. I'm going to quickly go through that again for you, just very quickly, because I want you to realize if you do not have, I think it would be great, because I know this machine has a super, super special price right now, and it's Mother's Day, ladies, and you've been cooped up for, what, 10 weeks now? This would be a great Mother's Day present. But if you don't have one of those machines, we have feet that will fit any 7,000 different machines. And the only ones we don't have a foot for are some of the ones that have a slant shank. So we don't have one for the slant shank. But you can see that there are differences in them, but all 4 of those feet will fit many different machines.
I'm going to take a second because they have a lot of questions about how you clean. A lot of them have never heard that, so.
Okay, so when I clean my iron, if I needed to clean the bottom of my iron. And don't ask me how this happened, but this was a number of years ago, and my ironing board, which was in my laundry room at the time, I now fortunately have a sewing studio, so we don't have to share with a washer and dryer, but it was in there, and for some reason there was, yes, a loaf of bread on my ironing board. Who knows why, but it was there. The iron was hot, the bread got too close, and you can imagine the rest. But all I had to do was take a piece of paper towel. I used several layers, so this would be doubled up like this. And so if I was doing this with the press, I would cover my press with 2 layers of paper towel. This is a bounce dryer sheet. Okay, it's a new one, not an old one. I would lay this on top, and if it was just my iron, I would take my iron. This is not a hot iron, but I would iron it back and forth on there, and it would clean that off. Now, most of you know that when you get something on your iron, hang on here, most of you know that when you get something on your iron, you take that iron because you think it's going to work, and you go to the edge of your ironing board, and then you pull it down like this. That's how I clean mine. I take this to the edge of the ironing board, and I come down like this. Now, if you've never heard this, that's what will be left. You will be taking off the residue. This also puts the glide back on your irons. If your iron's not seeming like it's going anywhere, it'll put the glide right back on your iron. So on that press, I would be doing the same thing. I'd layer that up, pull that press down, and then I would let it cool down a little bit, and as soon as it was as cool as I could stand it, or still warm as I could stand it, maybe is the best way to say it, I would get in there and I would use my hands with that same bounce towel, and I would try to get that off of there. But it works, ladies, trust me, it works. And gentlemen.
You use the press. If they're using an iron, what temperature should they have it set to for this?
I use it on cotton. I use it on cotton. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to take this foot off. And so I'm going to drop the foot off, but then I also need to get my screwdriver, and I'm going to take that ankle off. Now here's another beautiful feature of that machine. I have fairly large hands, and I have some older fingers. I don't know what happened there, but anyway, sometimes this is not the easiest, especially since I'm right-handed. But look at this great big space I have here. It's awesome to be able to get in there and touch that and get where I want to go with my fingers there and not have to try and be a little princess with little teeny tiny fingers, and I can easily get that off. Plus, I have all of this space in the front right here. I have a lot of space. And the distance from here clear over to here, which I don't even know if you can see all of that, it's like 14 inches. So you have a ton of space there. Well, I'm going to be putting on my ruler work foot, and the thing that you want to remember is when you do this, with this particular one that's made for this machine, when I set it for ruler work, not right now because it's not in the right position, but when I set it for ruler work, it's going to be dead center and I don't have to do anything else with it. But if you're still not sure of all of those kinds of setups, go over to the Sew Steady page sometime. There's about a 2-hour tutorial it's called Let's Get Started, and it will take you through that. So before I show you the screen for setup, let's have another giveaway. What are we giving away this time?
We're going to give away
Echo Guides. Okay, Echo Guides are those pieces that actually fit around the foot here and make it larger so that we can, I got to find my little box here, so that we can make our lines easily a distance apart. And you know, I'm going to be using this Echo Guide in a minute, so that was a perfect selection for a giveaway. So these are the 3 Echo Guides right here. And so those are the sizes. So I'm going to just wait a minute and we'll give those away, but I'm going to wait just a second to do that. All right, so what I'm going to put up on here now is the screen so that we can see how we set this machine for ruler work. So if you remember, we just did this decorative stitch. It told us what foot to do. We are going to go over now to what's called, well, the t-shirt. And when I touch that t-shirt, I am going to now select this decorative like quilting design. And you'll notice we have free motion, but we also have ruler work. And although things set up similar, they're not exactly alike. So I select ruler work. And then, because I know this is a very thin bat, because it is the one that is the fusible fleece, it's not very thick, I'm going to touch light. And when I touched light, did you notice that even this QR code changed? So it had different instructions for that. Now, the beauty of this machine, and you're going to hear me say that over and over and over, but one of the things I even like more than the fact that, well, no, I just like it, is this little symbol right here. And when I touch that, you are going to notice that up comes my tension and the height of my foot. And the reason that is such a beautiful feature is because I don't have to go anywhere else to adjust tension or the height of my foot. So if I want my tension to be so that it is, let's say that there's threads pulling to the bottom, that means the top needs more strength, so we would press the plus. And if the foot is too low, I would press the plus because I want the foot higher. If the foot is too high and I want to go lower, I press it here. So everything I need is right here with 2 touches so that I can be ready and set up, and I don't have to go all over my machine hunting these to adjust. So if I've got that and that's exactly what I want, I'm going to go ahead and close that window, and we're going to go back over to the screen here. I'm going to show you that I always put my thread down into that opening of my fabric. So I always do. There, I did do it, but it just wrapped around. Well, what in the world? It might be easier to unthread. There we go. Okay. So, automatically lowers the feed teeth for me. I don't have to do that either. So what I'm going to be doing for this back, if you're on step 1 and 2, remember I said I'm going to go from this side so that you can see it. I need to get my little crosshair grid here, and I am going to measure down 5.5 inches from the top. Oh no, that's the front. I am going to be measuring down anything you want, really, because all we're doing is locating the center. So I'm going to take my crosshair grid, and this is where I love having this grid glider, is I have now got it placed in here. I know that if I put it in the center, I've got 10 inches from side to side. I'll move it up so you can see here how I'm doing that. So I've got 10 inches side to side. So I'm just bringing my grid glider down, and I'm lining it up. And all I need to do on this one, and I've sprayed this with 2 layers of spray alternative. So you can either use Basting or Best Press, or I like to use the one by June Taylor that's called Starch Savvy. I'll show you that one right here. And when I put those 2 layers on there, it not only makes it so that it is a firmer fabric, it also makes it so that I can erase these Frixion pens. Because what it did was it put a layer or a barrier between this black Frixion marker and the fabric. So now all I need are those diagonal lines. I'm going to take this and go this direction, and this one and go this direction. And so I'm going to line that up just to get my lines clear across there, because all I need to do is draw 2 lines. So now that I've drawn those 2 lines, I am going to take my 3x8 straight edge. This is the 3x8 straight edge right here. And I'm going to put that, I want my line, now it doesn't really matter, I'll tell you it doesn't really matter, but I want my needle to be in this line for right now, and it just makes it easier.
And there was a question that came through from Carolyn, is why did you put your thread under the foot?
I don't want that thread out over the top of the foot because right now my first step is to put my needle down, and with my needle down, now this is closest to that bottom. And so what I'm going to do is, I want to explain this first of all to you. You've read the instructions and I've shown you some things. This is 10 inches wide, but we're only going to be using 8.5 inches. So I have about a 3/4 of an inch margin all the way around. So for this very first step, I'm pulling the thread up, but I don't need to tie it because it's out in the margin. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring that thread up by bringing the needle up. I bring the foot up, and I'm going to pull that thread up. Now, it was a little tail, so I've got to get a hold of it with my tweezers here. There we go. And I'm going to pull that out so I have control of both threads. When we do the front, I'll be able to show you exactly how we tie that and all of that. So I always start with my needle down. I do that when I'm sewing. I always put my needle down to start. Now this is something that we have not talked about, and this is what's called a spacing gauge. And this is a clear piece that has markings on it. Now, you'll trust me, I have one for teaching purposes that looks like this. And so some of you are going, yay, because I could not even see that. And I need to, because my needle is always 1/4 of an inch. No matter where I put my ruler, my needle is always 1/4 of an inch. So I need to make it, since that needle is in that line, I need to make it so this 1/4 of an inch is going to be right smack dab on that line all the way down. Now, we all know from back in the days that a way to make a line straight is to have 2 points. So there's one point, and there's the other point. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start moving this. Now, this is something you may want to write down because I did not put that on there because it's part of the basics. I set my speed to medium speed because remember, I am the speed control here. I am the mover of the fabric. Stitch length really doesn't matter because I'm the one that's moving. We want to pretty much get like a 2.5 stitch length, 2.4, 2.5. That's what our goal is. We don't want little teeny tiny stitches, and although big stitch quilting is popular right now, we don't want that either. So I set my machine to a medium speed on the speed control, and it's just a little bar right where your start-stop symbol, and I turn my foot pedal, and the Janome foot pedal is a nice big pedal, and it works perfect for this because I turn it around to the back so the high side is closest to me, and then all I do is use my toe on that foot control and I floor it. So you'll notice that when I start, I've got one hand here. This could be a problem because that's off the edge. I'm going to show you my little hint, and that is that I have right here with my tools, I keep a piece of fabric that is just something old that I have been practicing on, and I put that right next to it because now it's not going to stick to my mat. So I'm just going to stitch. I'm using my hand on the template and my hand on the fabric, and I never go to the end of my ruler. I always stop with the needle down and don't go to the end because, believe it or not, you can fall off your ruler. And so now I'm coming down here. I'm going to measure. I'm going to move this around to this side. This is a good project for learning because there's so many things that you're going to encounter that you encounter in this project. So now that I'm clear down here in the corner, remember I told you I have that margin, and I know you can't see this. Well, that's great. I didn't make any, oh yeah, that's just my thread. it looked like I hadn't stitched anything. So I'm going to come across, well, let's try this again. Remember, I'm going to put it in that lock position and everything will be in the right spot. It looks like I went off the edge of my fabric. Okay, here we go. Just what happens to everybody, right? Here's a little hint that I have. When you put this through here, you can't really see if you got it through and you can't find it. So all you're going to do is make sure it's touching your fabric and then pull it to the side and it'll pull right with you. And I did, and it pulled right off. There we go. All right. So I'm going to set this back down, needle down, and I'm going to come across. And I have two options of how I could do this. I'm going to show you one and then I'll show you the other. On this particular piece of fabric, I'm going to use my little extender here. On this template, I have lines, and each one of those is 1/4 of an inch. Well, if I have 3/4 of an inch here, in other words, I use this line, and that's where I would take my little marker. Well, Megan, I might need some, there we go. And I would just put it so that it's right at that line so I don't have to keep looking for it. And so now, the 1/4 of an inch that's here, and these 3/4 right there, you can see I'm not right side by side with my template, so I'm just going to come back to touch it. And I don't need my spacing gauge because I've already made my one line.
But can you tell us again, we've had questions, where do they find it and how is it important to your sewing?
What's that?
The spacing gauge.
Oh, the spacing gauge. Well, when I first did that, I'll show you again on the other one because I've got another line to do. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down right on this edge because remember it's going to get cut off. I'm going to move this so that it is on the 1, 2, 3 inch line, or 3/4, and I'm going to look back up there and make sure that's straight. Now I know you can see my little dot there, so you can count, or my little marker. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back because you're going to learn to stitch this both ways. Remember, don't fall off your ruler, and I push this on. Line it up and come back this direction. I come over. I'm going to push this over until I get to that point. I'm coming back this direction. And the reason I had you find the center when you drew that, I'm going to stop right here so I can show you about that spacing gauge. The reason I had you find the center when we did this is when we cut this off, I like to cut off equal sides so this still remains a center. So it's not like the cross hatching is off to one side or the other.
What was the size of that square, or of that X that you did?
All I did was take my crosshair grid and I used my lines on my grid glider because it's from 0 over here to 10 right there. Here was my 5 and I used the center line and lined it right up with that 5. And so when I lined that up, then I just drew this X this way and this X that way.
So it's just the size of your glide.
Yeah, it was just the size of my crosshair square.
Okay.
Now you could use just 2 rulers. I realize you wouldn't need to do that. That's just an easy thing to do because that's the way, I had that tool, so it wouldn't make sense.
They've been asking about the markers, what you use.
Okay,
and the names of them.
The markers, most of you remember the Frixon pens. And I have one here because I keep it so you can see it. The Frixon pens were what came out first. And they had a metal tip. So I'll put it right up here so you can see it. And that metal tip
It's fuzzy because it's too close. It's okay.
Okay. The metal tip, whenever you would mark with it, and I'll come over here in the edge because it's going to get cut off. Whenever you would mark with it, you might see it, but not enough. And so you'd mark again, and then you'd add a little anger, and you just kind of really beat that down in there. And the reason that that didn't come out, it would ghost, it would come back in the cold, it would do all this other kinds of stuff, was because it's a metal tip. It was never really designed for fabric. So even if you had put on the best press, it would have abraded through that and gotten into your fabric. And then it would have left that ghosting or whatever. The new ones, this was about 1.5 or 2 years old. These are the markers. It's like a flare tip pen. It's a felt tip. And it was called Frixon Colors, just the regular markers. But they just recently came out the beginning of this year, and I like to use these most of the time, but when I'm teaching, I use the marker because it's a heavier line. But look how nice and fine that line is. So if I were to draw it on here, I'll just draw it in here because I don't need it. You can see it's a very fine line. I could easily work with that, but you couldn't see it.
And they're called fine liners.
They're called fine liners, Frixon fine liners, yes. Come in a bunch of different colors. If you're wanting one that's going to show up on darks or blacks, you're going to get the lime green or the yellow or the orange. All right, so those of you that wanted to know about this, when I start stitching this spacing gauge gives me the 1/4 inch that I need because my needle is 1/4 inch from the edge of my foot. So my foot's 1/2 inch and the needle is dead center. So I'm going to go ahead and put this down. Remember, I don't have to tie anything because of the fact that this is on the edge. And I'm going to go ahead and put my needle in place. I'm putting this up against there, and you can see there's a distance. I can tell you that's 1/4 inch. So down here, I want to go 1/4 inch also. And so I'll stay right on that line. I'm going to extend this down. I'm going to measure that 1/4 inch.
Debbie has the question. She read somewhere that you're not supposed to pull the fabric towards you when you're doing ruler work, but you just did. So is there a direction?
I don't know. I would love to know where that's at. We pull our fabric sideways, upside down, backwards, whatever. So you can go, it's free motion technique, so it's free, and you can go any motion. That may have been someone who was having an issue with their machine and needs to have maybe a little bit of a tune-up. I don't know. I'm not saying it's wrong, but I sure have not found it to be factual. Okay, so what I want to show you now is how you can use an echo guide. So I'm going to take the 1 inch, and there is a little 1 down here. I don't know. Yeah, you can see it there. And when you can read that, that's the way it works. So in other words, don't turn it upside down. It won't fit on. And so what I'm going to do is through what's called the expansion slot here, I'm going to put my thread, and then I'm simply setting it underneath my foot and lowering my foot. Now you saw it just kind of popped right down in there. I'm going to raise that foot and pull this up just a little bit more because when it's down, I still want to be able to move my fabric. Now, the distance from the needle to the edge is 1 inch. So now, I don't have to do any measuring. I just put this edge on the edge of the line that I just stitched. I'm putting my needle down, and here we go. Again, I don't want to fall off of my ruler. I'm going to pull this line down, and from now on, I can stitch this and not really do any measuring at all. Now remember, I got a margin around there, so what I'm doing is I'm getting it so that that line's right up with that line. You can see my edge is right there with the line.
So you have options of how to do this, what you're saying. You
Absolutely.
could either use the green arrow that you marked for the first one,
Right.
or the echo guide.
You could use the echo guide or the green arrow. Now the beauty of the echo guides is, this is my 1 inch, but I also have it so it would be a 1/2 inch or 3/4 of an inch. So again, you have options. While I'm stopped here, I'm going to go right back there to the back, line that up, and continue on. I'm coming down. Right here I passed it, but remember I'm in a margin, and all I'm doing is lining this up. This is a great way to start template quilting. And if there are those of you out there that are perfectionists, do what I did. Give it up, okay? Because life is too short. So any of these bags that you make are going to be useful. I have a whole collection of them. If we have time at the end, I'll pull them out so you can see them. And I keep my templates in them. So for example, the ones I'm doing here, I could keep this set of templates in. I've got other bags that I make, and I keep, different sets in. Now, I do that because it makes it easy when I'm traveling to just pull out a set and know that I've got the whole set. So now that I'm here, notice I've already stitched this line, but no lines this way. This is already lined up. Lucky me. And now all I'm going to do is go this direction. So what questions do you have while I'm doing this kind of mindless little bit of stitching here?
We don't have a question yet, but Linda said she never thought to use the echo guides for cross hatching. How cool of an idea.
It really makes it a lot easier and a lot faster. And I want you to know you can do it both ways, but echo guides really take all of the measuring out of it, because like right here, I'm right at the right point and I'm right lined up, and I can just start stitching. Now you could do straight, Megan, if you want to get the one that I did last night, because I did straight on that. So this one that she's showing here, I'm not sure how much you can see on that, but I just did straight lines. Obviously 6 or 8 straight lines goes a lot faster, but you're not going to learn as much. But if you want to do those, just the straight lines, that's perfectly fine too. If you have other templates that you want to try out on your back, that would be good. I just know when people start out, this helps you learn to control your hands. It helps you to learn to control the movement of your templates. It also helps you to get the hang of how to, you'll notice, I haven't even mentioned it, but the speed on my machine is staying consistent from the beginning to the last. You just hear the same speed. You don't hear any revving up. And I will tell you, I am not a free motioner, you guys. I could never do free motion. And I think that's probably why nobody ever gave me those hints, and I couldn't control my hands and my feet. And so I just pretty much had a mess, and it was just something that was not fun. This is so relaxing. I will tell you, once you get going on this and you get your machine set up, and this one is so easy to do. We actually teach hands-on classes with these machines, and it's amazing how within 15 or 20 minutes we're all sewing.
All right, so some of the questions have been, where do they get these products? So you always tell them to go to their local quilt dealer.
Right, I tell you to go to your local quilt store, and I would also beg you to tell them if they need to know sources, they can contact me. If you can't find them somewhere, give me a shout. I'll get you hooked up. I can tell you that I am one of those gadget ladies, so to speak, that will not sell you a gadget that's not useful. If you knew how many extra things I have, I had a store for 35 years and just closed it 2 years ago. We just still have an online store. But I can't tell you how many things that I have purchased thinking, oh, this is going to sell well in my store. And when I found out I didn't like it, it's still somewhere, but I'm not selling it to somebody if I don't like it. So that's just something. I'll get you hooked up and show you where to be able to get them. So I've got just a few more lines here. I think we'll give away, did we give away Echo Guides already?
We did already give away the Echo Guides.
All right, what else do we have there that we can
give away another staple tape.
All right, staple tape it is. So next up on the door prizes without a door is staple tape. So get those comments in there. Remember, you can like and share and all of that good stuff, because I hope you're enjoying what we're doing here and showing you how to use the templates and the extra things. Oh, I will tell you with one thing, this will happen to you. So I might as well just go, oh, that's okay. I can show you something I wanted to show you anyway. My bobbin is out, and when my bobbin is out, it's out. There's not 3 more stitches, none of that. So here's how easy it is to change the bobbin. So I'm pulling this back from the lead end, and I've got this piece on here, and I can still leave that. This is going to pop up, and I'm going to go ahead and pull this out, and you will see that I have virtually no thread left on there, but I could have got to the end of the line. And so I'm going to have Megan move the camera to the top of the machine, because this machine has a bobbin winder that does not run off the motor of the machine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this here, and you'll notice that I have my thread tree back there. And so I'm simply, you don't need to move for this, but I'm simply coming around. There's a tension guide down here, and I'm bringing this around clockwise on the bobbin. And then around the bottom edge here, there is 4, or I think it's 3 or 4 little knives, and I just pull it around there, and that breaks my thread and holds it in place. I push this over, and right here's the motor. Now, everybody be real quiet. Is that like the quietest bobbin winder you've ever heard? That is super, super quiet. The neighbors do not know you're sewing, because some bobbin winders are so noisy. Even on some of the top of the line machines, they are super, super noisy. And it's nice to have a nice quiet bobbin winder. Now this has an automatic shut off. If I wanted to stop where I was right now, I could just touch that button. I'm going to let it, well, I was close to the auto, so I'm going to go ahead and cut that thread, although I actually have a cutter down here I could have used. So it's popped back, and we'll go back down here, and the bobbin is going to lay into the bobbin case. I'm just simply pulling it around, and I put my finger on it. It makes it so much easier to get it in there the correct way. And if I'm having any tension issues on my template quilting, I usually make sure that I've threaded my bobbin correctly, because that's usually the only problem that I have. So we're going to come back down here. I think you're going to have to move the camera. I can't get down behind there. And we're going to come up. And we're going to come around.
That's okay. Give some of those who are sewing along a little chance to catch up. Pam said she's about halfway done with her cross hatching.
Wow, I'm impressed. Now, before I thread this, I'm going to put I take the lead end and just slide it back underneath there, and everything stays in place and lined up. If I wasn't so close, I would stop and move on too, but I'm so close that I'm going to finish this up. So I'm going to tell you that right here is where I was. If this was a project that I was entering in the fair, I would probably take that whole line out, or I would take it out to about right here where this intersection is, so that I have enough threads to tie. For what we're doing today, I'm just going to overlap a few stitches. Not the best way to tell you that, but I don't want to take the time to do all of that other, because I've got a lot yet to show you. So I'm going to line up my template.
We did have a question. Can you make this bag in multiple sizes?
Oh yes, you take these directions and go any which way you want. I've made them smaller, I've made them larger, I've even made it to hold my crosshair square. So for those of you that wonder what can I use my Echo Guides for, there's a lot of things, but this is one that saves you tons of time. And remember, I have a margin, and I'm just lining things up here. Now, I've had people tell me, oh, I sew better side to side. Hey, if you want to switch it side to side and sew side to side, there's nothing wrong with that. That works too. I'm out here in the margin. I'm lined up right there with that line.
Dawn had a great idea. Could you add a strap and make this like a cross-body bag?
I have done that. I wish I had mine here to show you. I did do that, and I absolutely love it. The difference is on that one, on this one, I'm going to put a gusset in the bottom so it holds more, and I suppose you could do it on that too. I left mine flat, but yes, you sure could. And I don't know anyone that couldn't use another bag like this, even if it's just to hold your techie stuff, your chargers and your all the different things that you have with your phones and your iPads and whatever.
Pam, to answer your question, the Echo Guides come together as a set. They do not come separately, is that correct?
That's correct. They are a set. I want to say that they're $10 for the set of 3. All right, so we have finished this, and just that quickly, we have our crosshair, or our cross hatching. I'm going to set this right down here for just a second. I have my little mini iron on, and I'm going to press the lines out so you can see that. So here is what we have. That piece is now finished, and I've already pressed out my lines. This is what the other side looks like, and it's the same color thread, and you can see why I didn't do it on that side, because you can't tell I did anything. So this one is finished for this time. Now I'm going to get the other one, and on the instructions, I'm going to take that Echo Guide off. On the instructions, it tells us to measure down 5.5 inches. Now remember, this is 10 inches wide by 11 inches tall, so don't get confused. This is tall. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to write, because I can mark it off, I'm just going to write top right there. And I need to measure down, if you notice on the very first page of the instructions, 5.5 inches. So I'm going to set this on 0 here, right here in the lower corner, and I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to measure from the top down 5.5 inches. And so I can tell right here, let's see there, that is 5.5 inches this way. And I'm going to measure in 5 inches this way. So right there's my center. And that's all I need as far as measuring. And now I'm going to get my crosshair grid, and I'm going to line this up with that center. And I want to make sure that I'm on here straight so that this is parallel across there. Sides are straight. And so now I'm going to mark all 8 this time. And I only usually go once, but for the fact that we're showing this to you guys, I want to make sure my lines are good and dark. And then all I'm going to do in here is connect. and connect. Now, on this one, if you are using the Janome templates, you're grabbing this. If you are using the sampler set templates, you're going to be getting the circle template. And what we're going to be doing is coming into this center of the template, and the center right here is where I'm going, not this over here. So I'm going dead center. Let's see if we can go up just a little bit. While you're doing that, I'm going to erase a line here that's going to be confusing, and I don't want it to be.
There has been some questions on this machine of pricing. Do you know the pricing of the M7?
I hope there's some educators out there that could answer that, and once we see the answer, we'll announce it. So I'm not sure what that is. Does anybody have an answer for these people that we can tell them on this beautiful machine? There we go. I wanted that so you guys could see it real well. So I'm going to put the foot down.
Cheryl did say to go to the Janome site because a lot of the dealers are having sales, so there are different pricings right now.
Okay. And I do know that if you buy off of our special site that we've set up today, I do know this much, it goes to your local Janome dealer. So it's not like if you take advantage of this and you buy it, you're not supporting your local dealer, because I do know that it goes to the local dealer. Okay, so I've got that in the center. I'm bringing my foot or my needle up, my foot up, and I'm bringing up. Okay, so I'm going to put this down and put the needle in place. So I've got my threads here, and oh look, on purpose I screwed up. But that's okay. I wanted to show you what the gate's for. So now that I've got everything ready to go, I can open my gate and put this around and put that back down. Now, the point is this is right at the back, and I have my line here right at the front. And I'm just going to go around and stop. I'm going to scooch it straight back on that line, and right back here in the back, you have to trust me, I've lined it up with that line, and I'm going around. So if you are looking at your instructions here, this is the template, and this is what I'm doing. Now, if you're using the sampler set, it's this bottom part right here. Oh, I guess we're so close we can't see. There we go. This is what I'm doing here. Or if you're using the sampler set, it's this one down here. That's why there's a line in between. And so now I'm going to go out to the side. Now, you have no rules, no regulations. There's no quilting police. There's no template quilting police. If you're more comfortable turning your fabric, and you can, just do it. So now you can see what I'm doing a lot easier. I'm putting that in place. I'm making sure I keep my threads out of the way. And I'm going to line up dead center on the back. And now I've done all 4 of those. So you could get a different template and add in. You could do all kinds of things. But what we're doing is the blue stitching on this picture right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this at a diagonal. And I'm going to pull this straight out to me. I'm going to push it to the back and line it up. And for those of you that have never done template quilting and you're thinking, and I know this happens because I hear it all the time, she makes that look so easy. Trust me, it is. When you're inside something like this, you're just pretending that you're trying to take a pencil or an ink pen and trace around it. But you're using a foot instead.
So we know we've talked about the gel, or those fine line pens. Have you ever done one that has a gel ink inside of it?
I use what I know works, and that's the ones I use. I have not tried those, I must be honest.
So Lynn, we're not sure if that gel ink that you're talking about is heat erasable.
Correct. So I'm back to the beginning. I'm taking my needle up, I'm taking my foot up, and I'm going to pull out this thread, and I'm going to show you how to tie these threads. So I'm cutting the one on the back, and what I'm going to do is, because you can see better on the front, I have 3 threads here on the front. I'm going to go ahead and pull the back one to the front because we can see it easier. And what I'm using is what's called a cinch side threading needle. And it has a little hook on the side.
There, go down. There we go.
That will allow that thread to easily catch in there. So I'm coming from the back side. I have 1 thread here somewhere, and I'm going to thread that in there and go right back through the middle and bring it to the front. So now I have all 4 of my threads right here on the front. And what I'm going to do is make a loop, because that's the first. I'm taking all 4 of them and making a loop. And then I'm simply taking the point and putting it right back in the middle and pulling that down to form a knot. Now the knot, you can see, is standing up right there, and that's the way I want it, because when I pull this back through, I am going to then come right to that center. I'm going to go right down underneath. I'm right in here, and I'm going to come out and bury those threads, but I'm also going to, uh-oh, I didn't get all of them. Try it again. I'm also going to be burying the knot. You'll notice that 1 went, but they didn't all go. So I'm coming back in, coming out. There we go. And I know you're not going to be able to hear it, but the knot's right there, and I've got all 4 of the threads. Well, you might have heard that. I don't know if you heard that knot just pop right down in there. I could hear it. And then all I'm doing is pulling this a little bit so this scrunches up so I can trim that thread. And now the ends of it go right in my fabric. And this fabric's kind of driving me crazy looking at it, because it looks like there's threads there and I keep going for them. All right, so that's the cinch side threading needles. It buries your knot. It's flat here. It's flat on the back. I got 1 little guy there. There we go. Get underneath there. Okay, so now that that is all done, what I want to do is I'm going to step over here and I'm going to take the lines out of the center, because I want you to be able to see this. So we've got some questions about this in the center. Now, if you think about how many, I did 8 of these, so that means there's 16 penetrations in the middle. You're going to have that. You can't put a needle back in the same place 16 times without having this. So I have some designs that there's 96 penetrations in the middle there. So if this is bothering you and you're thinking, oh no, I got to put a button there. If you want to on this bag, it's really cute. Or, oh, I got to put a yo-yo there. Well, yeah, you can do that, but you'll get used to this. That's the way it's going to be. That's just part of quilting, because there's no way you can have 16 penetrations and not have that. Now, the next step, I believe, is on page 3. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking our measuring tool, our spacing gauge, and from the outer point, or from the outer edge of your circle, you're going to make a little hash mark, 1 inch. 1 inch from that edge there. So I'm coming around here. I'm measuring 1 inch from that outer edge. And it's amazing, both of these designs, whether you do them with the Janome templates or you do them with the sampler set templates, end up the same size. So the next template that we're using, if you are using a Janome template, it is this one right here. It's the one that is the 6-inch arc. And if you are using the sampler set, it's the 4-inch arc. It looks like this without those little green dots or green arrows. And what we're going to be doing is, the first time around, we are going to be doing this. And on the Janome set, it's going to look pretty much like a circle. But when we go to the other set, it's going to look a little bit more indented, because this arc is a little bit more arced than this one. They will both work out just fine. So what we are doing is we are on the right side over here, and I'm going to lower my knee or my foot first. And you can see that right down in there. It's in that crosshair. My needle goes down, my needle goes up. And if you've not done this before, with that foot up, I can take this thread and hold it around my left pointer finger and pull it, and this is called flossing. And the reason I can do that is because that last thing we did, I did not use the machine cutter. I used just pulling it out and cutting it with scissors. So I'm going to put the needle down there. I'm using the Janome set, and I'm using my spacing gauge. Now, this is actually easier to do than it is to draw it out, because when I was drawing out the designs, I really needed like 4 hands to do it, because I had to hold this piece, and I had to hold this, and I had to hold this, and I had to hold my pen, and it's just a whole lot easier to do it on the actual fabric. So I'm at that spot, and I need to get to this spot, and no, I can't just do that. I have to allow 1/4 inch. And I need to make it so this flat is against that flat. So if you needed to turn it this way with your other template, because this would be this one, you might have to turn it a little bit. You can see it's not straight on that line. But we're going to stitch from spot to spot, and we are not trimming our thread until we've gone around here twice. So don't get too happy with that. I'm going to this spot, I stop, I reposition, I line up, I stitch. I line up again, and I stitch. Please share your comments and questions.
They're asking about the tape that's on your Janome stencil, so I think they mean the little arrows, maybe.
Are they talking about this? Are you talking about these green tape, this green? Those are just what are called G-Easy ruler stickers. I'll pop this down and you can see the word. Well, it's ruler stickers. There you go.
And many of you are asking because you either got on late or you're having to leave early. This will be able to be replayed later as soon as we're done with the live.
Yes, and you'll want to go back and watch it maybe this time actually making the project, whatever. I am now going to be closing this up, but I'm not stopping. So I'm right back to where I started. My threads are out of my way, and like I said, this one pretty much formed a circle. So now what I'm going to do is, I started on the right. I'm better with my template in my left hand. I need to finish this so that this goes this way. So fortunately for both of these templates, all you do is rotate them, and we're going to go inside now. And so when I lay this direction, you're going to see a big difference in how I line this up, because I'm going to be putting it almost, you can see how that's at almost a diagonal, because I want this flat against the flat here. If I take my spacing gauge and rub this around there, you can see how it changes direction. And right where I'm at there is how I want to measure. So now I'm going to be making this little loop. I'm going to turn it. I'm going to line it up. And you would be doing the same thing with the other template. And I want to encourage everyone to just take baby steps, take this a step at a time, jump in there and do your projects. If you look at all of the awesome, beautiful quilts out there that have been done with templates, and you say, I can never do that, don't do that. Because you have to start somewhere. And once you get going with this, you can do all of those kinds of things too, but you have to do it just like you learned to ride a bike. You did not start out on a 26-inch 12-speed. So I'm right back here at the beginning. I'm going to raise my needle, raise my foot, and I'm pulling this out, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to trim my threads, and I'm going to pull them to the front, and the one to the front, and I'll tie it. So I'll answer some questions while I'm doing that.
Carolyn would like to know, is there a way to ensure that when you stop and start back again that you don't get a bump? Because when she does it, sometimes the line isn't smooth anymore when she has to reposition her template.
It's again just learning to use that spacing gauge so you can get right back to the same spot.
There's also some questions on which machines these templates can be used on. Can they be used on multiple machines?
The Janome set is a high shank set. It can be used on any high shank machine. I'm trying to do this so you can see it if you're watching. You can get templates. All of our templates come in 3 different sizes. We have long arm, we have low shank, and we have a high shank. Now you can see how I'm burying this. If you want to get the best way to get started is either start with that Janome set. I want to give this a pull. There went my knot. You can start with the Janome set. You can start with the sampler set 1 from Sew Steady from Westerly. And again, that has the book called From the First Stitch to the Last that has 45 different designs in it. And that's a great way to get started too. So
Diana likes the ribbon on your spacing gauge. Is that something that they can find somewhere?
Yeah, this is just a what they call a wrist lanyard, and it just hooks on to your spacing gauge, and those are available on my website. Some other places may have them too. So what I'm going to do now, remember this says the top. And so when I go to the instructions, and I want you to notice that I did it in 2 colors, so hopefully you printed it out that way. This is the one I just finished, and if you did the one with the Westerly templates, this is the one you just finished, because you used this template. And so you have this design right here. So now what we've got to do is we've got to trim it up. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be measuring 4.5 inches down. This is the top. We're measuring from the center. So we're measuring 4.5 inches down and cutting that off. And then we'll measure 4 1/4 out this way and cut it off, 4 1/4 this way and cut it off. And then I'm going to measure up 9.5 inches and cut that. So we're going to join me over here at my cutting table. So the way I'm going to do this, I'm going to turn it sideways, and I'm actually lining up this line that I drew with one of my lines here. So you can see that's lined up right with one of those lines. And this is the bottom, and this is the top, because I left the word top on there. And I want to measure down 4.5 inches. So I'm going to line that up right like so. And this is what gets cut off of the bottom. So what I did was I used my mat here put this on a line and then measure down 4.5. So now I'm going to do this way, only I'm going to have Megan hand me my marker again over there, my black one, and I'm simply going to make those lines more prominent, and I'm going to measure, oh, already did that way, so we're going to measure this way, 4.25. So I'm going to come over to 4.25, and I'm going to cut. I'm going to turn it around, and this time I'm just going to measure 8.5 inches. So this would be 8 right here. And this is 8.5. Now before I cut this, I'm one of those that kind of doubts myself sometimes. That's correct. And we're going that direction. Now if I remember right, it's 9.5 inches tall. So I'm coming to this spot here, and I'm measuring 9.5 inches. So you can see what we had extra there. So I'm going to lay this down, and I'm going to have Megan iron off everything but the word top right now. And I'm going to cut the other piece. So this is the other piece that we have. And this one is going to finish at, I want to say 8.5 by 12.5. Does that sound right? Okay, so what I'm going to do is at the top of page 5, this is 8.5. Oh, that says 8.5 by 9.5. That's that one. The other one I know is 8.5 by 12.5. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the 8.5 wide first.
You're on your back, so it's on the first page.
Yeah, it's on the first page. It's on number 4 on the very first page. And that line that I had going up and down at 5 inches is right here. So I'm putting that right on a line that goes across, and I'm measuring out from there 4.25. There we go. 4.25. I gotta get a new blade. And I'm going to turn this around and simply this time measure it so it's 8.5. And so I've cut that. And now we're going to 12.5. So I'm just going to come to the top here, lay this on here straight, cut all my nasties off. And now you see the advantage of sewing with something larger and then cutting it back to size, because it's going to cut all of that nasty stuff off. So there's 10, 11, 12.5. Oops, I want to get that on there straight.
Could you tell what the difference for those that are new, because we have a lot of new people in this class, the difference between a high shank and a low shank?
Sure. Perfect timing here. Got my picture right here. So these are the shanks. This is a low shank template. These are high shank on this end. This is a medium shank. A lot of the FOF machines take a medium shank. And the difference on it is these are all the same, but the spacing here is different. So you can see that that's less space than this one down here. So my taller templates will fit behind my high shank. My lower templates will fit behind my low shank, but my lower templates will, or my higher templates will not fit here. I'm going to go ahead and tell you, if you have 2 or 3 or 10 machines, however that is for you, if you have low shank and high shank, you can purchase low shank templates and it will work for all of them. So low shank templates will work on a high shank machine, but high shank templates will not work on a low shank machine. All right, it's time now to do a quick change here. And so I'm going to change out the foot, and I'm going to select an overcast stitch.
So while you're doing that, is it also time for a giveaway?
Sure, give away whatever you want to give away, Megan.
What about a light stick?
Oh, perfect, and this is a good time I can talk about it. Unfortunately, I don't have one with me, but what you can do with a light stick is it will fit. It's very flat, and all you do is you're going to remove your glider. You're going to pull out your nice big blue drawer here and stick the light stick right underneath. You see my hand, it's underneath. And that makes this whole end of my table now a light table. And that light stick is an LED, and it's going to light up that whole end for you to transfer for your appliques, or maybe you're doing a, can't think of it, paper piecing. There we go, and you want to be able to see through it. That would work perfect for that. So that's what you can do for with that light stick. It's a great, great accessory. Mine just happens to be packed in my suitcase that travels, and I need to get it back out of there. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go over here to the screen again to show you. And this is the one that is pictured on your instructions. I went to the t-shirt, and I'm going to come back to do this so that it says make sure you got the proper presser foot. I'm saying okay, and I am going to actually stitch this stitch. And this is an overcast stitch. It tells me to use the M foot. It's set up my length and width and everything. Of course, I could vary it if I wanted to, but I am using stitch number 13. So we're going to go ahead. This is that M foot. It has these little extra prongs in it to hold my stitch nice and flat. I'm going to set this back down. The machine knows to raise up my presser feet. So my feed teeth are down there and they're raised. I'm getting my threads all out of the way, and I will tell you, when this stitch is finished, it looks like you've gone through a serger. So there's a little edge right here that guides that. I'm putting this down so that it again is down on the edge of the fabric. Don't start off the edge. That's not fair to your machine. And I'm going to put the needle down, and we're going to stitch this stitch around the edge. And since it doesn't go very fast, I'm not going to do all of this because I can fix this later, but I just want you to see how I would have done this. And here's a little trick that I have. I have these things that are by Clover, and they're actually for pulling elastic and ribbons through casings, but I use them right like this. Some of you have seen me sew before, and it just keeps everything nice and flat. I know some of you use like a skewer or something like that. I like this because it's flexible and it keeps it flat. Now on this stitch, you're going to stitch just one stitch off, raise the needle, raise the foot, pull the fabric just a smidge to the back, and place it right back around by this edge and in front of, or right behind the needle. Foot down, needle in the fabric, and here we go again. Now on a lot of fabrics you wouldn't need this. When we do the back we probably wouldn't need this little extra help here, but this front has not been all quilted, and remember we press the fusible to the other fabric. So that it's not fused here on the front, and I didn't want to do any overspraying. So that's why I like to use this, and it just works real easily.
And
Question.
Tell us the name of that again.
This is the Clover. They're actually for putting elastic and things in casings. Let's see if I have the name of it. Nope, I don't have it here. But they're tube turners too. You can actually turn tubes with them.
Is there a way that people can tell the difference in the templates of high shank versus low shank templates? We've had that question.
The thickness, you'll feel the difference. If I put this one up here and I put this so that you can see it, I'm going to pull out one of my others here that's a low shank. You can see the difference in the thickness. Maybe if I turn it this way, it'll be easier to see.
Okay.
If you sew on a high shank machine and that's all you sew on, get high shank templates. But if you need to, use them between machines, you can get low shank and use them on both. So I've done 3 sides of this one now. And I'm just going to go ahead and stop because you've seen me do that and I don't want to take up the time because I want to show you how I construct this bag. So if you want to hand me my zipper, there we go, and my instructions, we're going to try and follow through this so that you get the benefit from it. So remember, I've still got the word top here. It just helps me to have that. And so where we are here is we just did this step. So here it says edge stitch all sides of the front and back bag pieces, use stitch, and it's the decorative stitch on the utility panel, number 13. So if you want to write that in there, you've got your overcast stitches. You can see over here I was working on it, but I also showed you up close what I just did. So that's how that works. So now we're going to do this. We're going to layer our fabric and everything is shown. So this is the top. I'm going to take my little trim piece that I have here and I'm going to lay that on there. Well, notice, guess what? I did it and it's bigger. So I'm going to hand this to Megan and let her cut off the ends. And I need it to be 8.5 when you're finished, Megan. And so what we're going to do is we're going to lay that on there, and then you want your zipper to be longer. Now trust me, you could use a 9-inch zipper, but this 12 is going to be so much easier. And for the what, 15 cents difference in price, it's really worth that 15 cents. So when we use the zipper, we're going to be laying it down. I'm actually going to go ahead and pop this foot off. There's a little latch on the back that brings that off. And I know you're going to think I'm crazy, but I'm going to set this back for a straight stitch.
8.5 for this piece?
8.5. And I'm sitting my foot back down to pick up my foot here, and I'm back to using that F foot because this is not like a 4H zipper that's in the back of the dress or whatever. This is a zipper that we want things to show. So you can see I have my zipper as part of my decoration. So we're going to have that show. So we're going to take the right side of our little strip here. And again, I've made this, I know a lot of people come into quilting with never having done much sewing. And that's all right, that's fine, that's good. But some of these little hints and tips I'm telling you are sewing hints and tips that you may never have heard before. And I'm all about lining things up to make it easy. So what I'm going to do is, as you see here, it says to line this up so that you got the front of the tote right side up, the accent strip, raw edges even, and then it says zipper right side down. So make sure that tab is right side down, and you're going to match it so that the left edge is right along the edge of your trim. And the rest of those instructions said about 1/4 inch from this edge. So look how easy that is. You've got that 1/4 inch just by lining it up with that edge. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to set this underneath my foot, and I'm going to set that foot down so it's right beside the edge of those zipper teeth. And then I'm going to move my needle position, and we have 90 on this machine. Is that like awesome or what? And I'm going to move it, in this case, clear over, let's see here. I moved it clear over to number 1.0. So it's not quite as far left. And you can see in that picture there on step 3 and 4 on page number It looks like it doesn't have the 6 on there, but it's page number 6, I guess. And so you can look in step 3 and 4 and you can see exactly how that needle is lined up. And I'm going to stitch forward, I'm going to hold in my reverse button and stitch back. And then I'm coming across there, just keeping those left side of the foot against the right side of the feed teeth. So you can see I kind of centered my zipper on there. And so now I'm going to go ahead and cut that. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to press this so that I'm pressing this all down. So just give me a second here. And obviously this is not something you're going to do on a press. This is something I'm actually using my little tiny iron.
So Dawn had asked earlier about the strap. Is this the time that if you were going to add a strap, you would do that?
Right. At this point, you would have your strap pieces ready, and they would end up going on the inside of your bag so that when you turned it, they would be on the outside. Can you pull that out for me a little bit? Thank you. All right. So here, I've pressed this, and yes, you can press that zipper. This lays down this way. And at this point, if you wanted to, when you were doing this stitching, you could have laid this piece on there and stitched that with it so it wouldn't have raw edges.
What needle plate do you have on?
The regular needle plate, just the regular multi-purpose. And so what I'm doing now is this side of the zipper, again, we're still going to be using this. I'm setting the foot down so it rubs against the edge of these teeth. But I'm putting the needle back to center position. And you'll be able to see that on step number 5. So on number 5, where it says press or with needle in center position. And so I'm going to stitch a few stitches forward, a few stitches back, and look at that heavy duty going right through that like it was nothing. And we've got a lot of layers there with a piece of fleece. And it's just going right through it. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that thread. And so we've got that on there nice and flat. It looked like it was going to pucker there, but it didn't. And so now we need our back piece. Can I have my back piece? And because I like the looks of this versus the can't see anything that I did side, I'm going to go ahead and make my bag this time so that the sides match. So this is the way it's going to go. You need to make sure that you get that lined up, but this is going to flip over this way. So I'm going to line that up. I'm going to turn it over. I'm going to put my zipper, again, like a 1/4 of an inch away. I'm going to set this back. Remember I had it at 1.0 to the left. I hope that's what it was. Pretty sure it was. And I'm going to set that against there. And remember, we're just using our regular straight stitch foot. Or it's not a straight stitch foot, it's our multi-purpose foot. Happens to be the F foot. And it's not that I'm just that great at sewing straight. Trust me, this is just lined up right against that zipper, so it's so easy. And I do have it sewing at a fast speed. I'll slow that down a little bit. So I'm going to step aside one more time. We're almost finished, so hopefully you didn't have to leave right at 2 hours. I'm pressing this back so that I can stitch it down, and then we'll be ready to stitch up the side seams. And yes, it is pressing that makes this a whole lot nicer when it's finished. Just like anything else, you want to press as you sew. So now we're going to turn this around. I have pressed that zipper under. I want to make sure it gets started that way. I'm going back to the center needle position when you select the stitch again, it goes back to center needle. That wasn't supposed to happen. So now you can see in that photo there, I'm reaching under here just to make sure I've got it laid flat. This is not quite as thick because we don't have that extra layer of that fabric. And remember, I did not go ahead and do the edge stitching around this one. You would want to go ahead and do that. It makes your bag last a lot longer. So now we've got this all set to go. We're going to take the two bottom ends, right sides together. This just makes it easier to do. If you want to pin those or you want to use wonder clips or something, that's fine. I'm in center needle position. That's going to give me a 3/8 inch stitch. It's not real important to back stitch here because this is going to get cut off anyway. So I'm going to stitch across. Did she really speed up like that? Okay. And next what we need to do before anything, and I put it in there, is unzip your zipper so that it's halfway in the middle or we'll never get back in our bag. And so now I'm going to set this at the edge of the foot, giving me a 3/8 inch seam, needle down, and I'm going to come back and I'm going to line up this side. Sometimes I even call it scratch it together because I do it like this. Now when I get to here, I didn't explain this because it was out of vision. I'm going to pull this nice and flat because this is the side you want to do first, the one that doesn't have the zipper tab. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here and I'm going to make sure that I get that flat underneath there, put my foot back down, and I am going to sew clear to the top. That little extra that you hear there, that noise, that is the bobbin checking to see that it has thread. And you'll notice that I went back on this. So I'm coming back across that again, and now I'm just going to cut that thread. And at this point, don't use your good scissors. Don't use your Ginger scissors. Get yourself some scissors that you're okay with cutting through thick stuff. And this end of the zipper is coming off. And so what I'm going to do next is this time I'm going to sew from the top to the bottom. So I'm going to line this up, line that up, making sure it's all good and straight and lined up correctly. I'm putting my foot down. I'm going to stitch forward and back, and then forward, and I see how that popped up there. I don't want that, so I'm going to get that back underneath there. Oops, I'm going to just take this and turn this around because I just forgot to stitch back over that. Good deal. Glad I thought of it then.
We've had a question on here. Is there a class you recommend for the sampler set?
Yes, go to the university on Sew Steady's site, and there will be lots of options. We're building that university all the time, so there's a lot of information there. Good question. Okay, now that I've stitched this, I know I've got it open. I'm going to cut these off, and while I'm here, I'm just going to trim across the corner up here. That's the only ones you'll have to do that way. And then I'm going to come down here and I'm going to flip it. Oh, they both look the same, so I can't do that. But where's my black marker again? I seem to keep, there it is. What we need to do is measure in 1 inch and 1 inch from the edge of the stitching. So what I'm going to use is my ruler here that has those markings real easily, because you can see, I'm going to go this way. You can see there's the inch right there. I can lay that right on top of my stitching and lay this on top of my stitching, and I'm going to mark here and here, and then I'm going to come over to this side and do the same thing And this is going to form the bottom of your bag. So we're just going to take this, and again, you want some good sturdy scissors, but you don't want to cut too far. So make sure you stop a little bit before you think you should. And this gets cut out. And I usually just come in and snip it this way with the points.
There's a question of, will there be more projects using the rulers?
I sure hope so. If you're liking what you're seeing, you just need to let them know at Janome. It's a lot of fun to do things like this. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to form a gusset. So I'm going to just simply unzip the rest of my zipper here so I can get my hand in here to open this up. And this should look just like your picture pretty much, because what I did was I put these two seams together. One's going left and one's going right. And I hold this into position in your bag. Notice how my bag is just kind of standing up. And then all I'm going to do is that 3/8 inch across there, and we're done. So I'm going to go ahead and lower the foot. Like I said, I always put my needle down first. Makes my machine nice and happy. Reverse. Come back forward. Reverse. And I'm just going to use the cutter. You could even take the time to stitch over that with your overcast stitch. And I'm going to take this one again the same way. One seam right, one seam left, one seam up, one seam down, however you want to talk about it. And we're going to set this back in here. Foot down, needle down, forward. I always like to go a few stitches forward before I go back. It just helps seat your threads and makes everybody work together a lot better. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and cut that. At this point, I've already snipped the threads or snipped the corners here, so I'm going to unzip this. I'm going to go ahead and take those two corners and push them out. I like to use my point turner. Point turners come in a lot of different ways. This one's my old wooden one. I have plastic ones too. Don't try to use your purple thing. If you have a purple thing, that's a little bit too flimsy and you can break it.
The question's come across, would serging it be any stronger to the bag?
You can do that. You can do that, no problem. So what I have now, when I go down into this bag, I'm coming right to the corners here, and I'm just using my two fingers and pushing those corners out. And you can see how I just pushed that out. My seam matches up. Even though I was doing lightning sewing, you know, it still matches up because of the way that we do that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here and just quickly, I'm going to be laying it like this and just giving that a press.
Do you want to give one more giveaway?
Sure, this would be the last. Is this a grid glider?
Yes, it would be for the grid glider.
Okay.
And can you explain again, there's been a lot of questions on how they know who gets what. How is that working again?
Stacy's taking care of all of that on her end. It's kind of like she's in Oregon, I'm in Indiana, and she's taking care of that on her end as we go. So she'll notify you after a week, because people who are just now watching the reruns will be able to see that. Now I've got one more thing I want to press, and that's right here at the top. And the only reason we're not showing you this is it just takes more time than it's worth to move the camera. And so now we have our bag finished. And somewhere around here, I have a little pull tab that looks like this. And this comes in the kits if you get them from us. And I'm going to show you, because I messed with this for almost an hour one time trying to figure it out. So I take two pieces of thread that are about 6 inches long. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one end through the big loop here. Because if you look at this, there is no way that little teeny tiny hole there is going to accept all of this. So after I've taken those threads through there, I simply get them all even. And the reason I said 2 pieces is because it needs to be stronger. And it looks like I lost one, so I got to get the other one. But I tried to do it leaving one end looped, and I couldn't get that loop through there. So I'm going to wet my threads. So now I can put those together. They'll stay together. They won't come apart. My hands are so dry from all the sanitizing and washing and all that they're pulling the threads out. See that? It just dropped at that time. So here we go. So now that that's through there, there's 2 threads. I'm pulling this, and all I'm going to do is take these and go through my opening in my zipper. And when I pull this through there, am I on the screen? Okay. When I pull this through there, it's just so simple that it just comes right through, and you'll spend way too much time trying to do it the other way. And so now you have created a nice little bag that you can use for many different things. And as someone had asked, if you wanted to put a strap on it, you could have put that in right beside this strip right here, and you would have put that in before you stitched your side seams. And now we have a place to store our different templates. So this is one of them. I'm going to get you a couple more. We'll have a little showcase here of bags so that you can see the different ones. So this is one that I've used, and this was done with the Spinning Wheels 36 template that's in the sampler set. That design would be in the book that I referenced earlier. It looks like this, Janet Collins, from the first stitch to the last. I have another one here that I did a larger design on. This one is a little bit larger bag even because I had some larger templates that I needed. But you can see all the fun that you can have playing with your templates, making a useful project that you can do, you can use in a lot of ways. And again, it's something that you could make as a gift for someone because everybody has a use for something like this, whether it's putting makeup in it for travel, or like I said, your cords for your electronic pieces and all of that different stuff. This one, again, I did it so that you could see both of the colors. The one that I did for the picture that, or the instructions you have, has it so the back I did in a vertical line, and I did the same design on the front. So I have one more thing to show you. Yes. Okay, and that is the stitching line disc. If you want to hand me my mat there, I've got this. We've got one more prize to give away. I'll need my papers. For your instructions, when I show you how I do my designs, this is what I do, is I actually draw them out. I have a mat that you can get. This has 50 sheets, 25 are already marked and 25 are plain, but they're 12 by 12. And so the way that I do this is I actually use the template, but because the foot is going to give you a different size, what you need to do is have what's called a stitching line disc. And I taped mine here to my table so I wouldn't lose it. This is a stitching line disc. They come in a set of 8, 4 different sizes, and I like to use this particular size with a pen that is a stylus. So in other words, this little rubber part grabs onto my stitching line disc. So if I was going to be showing you how to use, let's say, one of the other templates in this set, I'll just use this one right here. If I were to put this right dead center and I put my ink pen in there, my ink is my thread. My stitching line disc is my foot on my machine. I've got my template and I line it up. And so now when I draw, it's the exact same size and shape as it would be if I was stitching. So the stitching line discs are great for designing. They're also great for getting your accuracy on where your 1/4 of an inch comes. And so, for example, that's going to show you what that would look like. Of course, I could draw the others, but this particular template I have a lot of fun with because I actually make this into a bow. So what I'm going to show you here is I need to have a quick little straight line. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this here because this is going to give you some insight into how we make continuous designs. So I'm going to start in the middle here. I'm going to go around. I want to make a bow. So I'm going to turn this way and I'm going to go around this and I've got my bow. But I want to make bows, more bows going down. I also want to show you quickly how we do some little fancy flares. You can see how I'm pulling this in so that it meets the line that was previously stitched. And now I'm going to line this up, and because I know I have to get right back down to where I was, I'm taking my stitching line disc, my spacing gauge, and I should be able to get right back down there. Lucky me, there's a little bit off, but lucky me. So now I just simply turn this around and line it up, and I'm going around 1.5 times. I'm going to flip this around and I'm going the opposite way, the 1/2 time. So you can see how I could do a row of bows and keep going because this was stitched twice and this was stitched twice, and that keeps it balanced for your eyes. So stitching line discs are my design treasure. I do a lot of designing just simply by sitting down with the paper and the templates and playing with them. So that's what we're giving away here last, it looks like, is the stitching line disc. And if anybody has any more questions, we'd be glad to hear them. This has been a lot of fun. I hope you feel like you have learned a lot. I would like to thank Janome for the opportunity to share with you today, and hopefully we can do this again sometime. Let your stores know about it, and maybe they can do what's called a watch party in the store where you can re-watch this with a group of friends and ask questions and entertain any kind of insights and things that you have learned together. So I guess there's some questions out there. Megan, what was the question?
They're still a little confused on how they know who the winners are.
I won't know who the winners are until Friday, and Stacy will announce those, and I'm sure she will send them to the people at Janome so they can announce them also. And the reason we're doing that is because there's going to be a lot of people that couldn't join us. For example, I know one lady who was setting her clock, but she wasn't guaranteeing it because 2 o'clock my time was 4 a.m. her time, and so they may be watching it later, and we want them to be able to be in on the winnings also. So you can watch it again, you can do more likes and comments and shares, and we appreciate that. Would love to have some hearts, some thumbs up if you have enjoyed this, so that we know that this is something that is going to be possible going forward. I can tell you that there's a lot of support for the templates, there's YouTubes, there's all kinds of information. So I know I'm past my time, so I've got to wrap it up. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. Thank you to Janome and all the nice people there who have supported this, and great to hear you respond with, hey, I've never done it, hey, I've done a lot of this, but I'm learning new things, and we just appreciate you joining us. So thanks again. See you sometime soon.